I, 26 male, detected my 5-year-long live-in girlfriend, 24 female, cheating on me with her coworker. My partner and I have been together for 7 years. We've been dating for almost 5 years and living together for around 18 months. I flew out of state for work and have been gone for a week. My flight had been delayed due to weather, so I told her I would just stay the night. But on the spur of the moment, I decided to take the red-eye and then drive back through the morning. I imagined it'd be a pleasant surprise. When I arrived, I spotted another car in the driveway. It didn't really hit me, I simply thought it was strange for how early it was. I'm used to coming home late, so I'm adept at sneaking in silently. I came in, unpacked my filthy clothes, placed them in the hamper, and then went to my bedroom. They were both in bed, only partially clothed. I didn't instantly recognize the other person. I don't know how long I stood there because they were both asleep. It didn't add up. I had one of those moments after recognizing the guy in bed with her. Just a split second where I imagined picking up something big and slamming it into his face. But it was over in a flash. I was simply exhausted and depressed. I woke her up and informed her that I was leaving for a motel. I guess she was too sleepy to realize it at first. She was smiling for a few moments before recalling. She sprang up and began to speak and cry, but I ignored her. I grabbed some more clothes and exited. Before leaving the driveway, I turned off my phone. I'm at a loss on what to do right now. I feel as if I've been in a car wreck. I'm just sitting here in this hotel room, drinking whiskey. On the way over, I stopped at the supermarket. I've got my laptop, phone, and a change of work clothes, and that's all I've got. I don't want to feel like this any longer. I don't want to be any longer. Update. I cried for a while because she was so direct about it. It wasn't the first time they'd slept together, and she didn't try to justify it by claiming there were extenuating circumstances. I wasn't stoned or drunk. He did not compel me. When he hit on me, I was flattered. He's a highly gorgeous man who could definitely sleep with a lot of different ladies. So it was incredibly special for him to choose me. It was an opportunity to appease my big ego. She claimed she'd understand if I didn't want her in the house or in my life. She complimented me for not addressing her as or etc. Despite the fact that I am. She said I didn't have to stay in a hotel, that she'd be gone in the morning, and that she'd leave her keys there. Then she apologized for betraying everything we had and shattering your trust in me. She stated I didn't have to talk to her again if I didn't want to. I can't do anything to make up for what I've done. No apology is sufficient. I was selfish, arrogant, and deceitful just because I wanted to be. I don't deserve your forgiveness, no matter how badly I want it. I'm only asking because I'm a hypocrite. I apologize. I'm crying all over again just reading this. I'm glad she didn't try to excuse her actions. But I'm still perplexed. Update 1. I've been home for a couple hours now. I ate a grilled cheese with onions while watching Cosmos. I almost wish I'd been called into work, it would have been easier to distract myself. It's been difficult to resist the impulse to call her as it is. I'm not sure how I'm expected to settle things if I don't approach her at some point. In the interim, I've received a couple phone calls. A few were from her family, with whom I am very friendly. I'm guessing she told them she'd cheated at some time yesterday. Her sister informed me that she would be staying in a spare bedroom at her house. And her father apologized through text, claiming he believed he'd raised her better. I was relieved that she had not sent me any texts. I'd be inclined to call if I heard her voice. When I realized I'd received a text from her coworker, I nearly burst out laughing. I'm sorry, guy, I didn't know. Perhaps he did, perhaps he did not. I don't mind as long as I never see him again. People have given me a lot of advice and encouragement, which I greatly appreciate. Some people believe I'm a jerk for not promptly evicting her. I disagree, but whatevs. However, I also received a few alarming and nasty remarks implying that I should have gone far further. Call me a beta if I didn't send someone to the hospital. I'm not looking to please people like you, and my heart aches for that kind of misogynistic behavior. Anyway, based on the advice I've received, it appears that a long separation would be the best way to establish how I feel. Despite what has occurred, I have no regrets over the last 5 years. But I need some time to think things out, and I'm not the sort to jump into something. So I'm not going to throw away everything she owns. What I could appreciate some assistance with is determining the period. How long do I have to wait? At some point, there must be a conversation. Update 2. I arrived home early around 2 days ago to discover my girlfriend, let's call her Laura, asleep in bed with a co-worker of hers. I was too weary and stunned to talk to her, so I departed after obtaining a change of clothes and staying the night at a motel. People on here gave me a lot of helpful advice, which helped me plan my future moves and realize the world isn't over. I set aside the day today to complete a lot of tasks. I removed her from both my internet and phone contacts. I called Laura's sister and asked her to come over and get everything Laura would need for the next few months, but I told her I didn't want Laura to come here. She concurred. Then I packed everything I knew she'd need: bank statements, phone chargers, glasses, and so on. I also jotted down all of the contact information she'd require to have her mail diverted. Her sister arrived shortly after noon with a few boxes. I aided her with packing a little, but it didn't take long. Clothes, makeup, plus a few more items I'd forgotten about. As she was leaving, she informed me that Laura had requested a transfer at work. I brushed it off and said goodbye. If she genuinely did that, I figure it's not anything I should be concerned about right now. According to what everyone on here has said, now is the time to concentrate on myself. To that purpose, I called work and confirmed that I had a week and a half of paid vacation. I won't necessarily take them right away, but it's good to know. I spent the remainder of the day just trying to have a good time. While eating double cheese macaroni, I watched 2 of my favorite Mel Brooks films. I went to the local Barnes & Noble and bought a few books. And I tried a new game called DayZ, which I am completely useless at. I believe I've made a clean break and given myself the necessary space. But I'm still in a bad mood. I was getting tiny forgetful moments all day that made me feel like I was browsing at the bookshop and thinking she'd enjoy this book. She always giggles at that part, for example, while watching a movie. I can't stop thinking about them, my brain just kicks into high speed, regurgitating memories and thoughts I don't need. I don't know how to go past that, it drives me insane. Logically, I realize that I need time and space to think things out. To reorganize. Nonetheless, the prospect of spending a month like this makes me feel as if I'm battling to breathe. What if I require 3 months? Or how about 6? Or over a longer period of time? I'm afraid I'm going nuts. I'm at a loss on what to do with myself. I'm at a loss on what to do with this spare time. I've severed the ripcord and am now free-falling. Third update. I've followed some of the fantastic suggestions from many of you, and looked into a few projects to keep myself busy. Changing my living space appears to be a major theme, and just changing a few things in the flat has already made me feel a little better. After speaking with the landlord, I went out and purchased some paint supplies. There are no plans for murals, but the little splash of blue I slapped over the yellow beige of one wall has improved my spirits. Working out appears to be less intuitive. I've never been in bad shape because of a healthy metabolism, a moderately active lifestyle, and food habits that are better than dismal. So I'm not quite from couch to 60, but I'm getting there because I've never had any official training/instruction in either exercise or dieting. I'm thinking that riding a stationary bike for 30 minutes a few times a week might be a nice place to start. However, any genuine suggestions on where to begin would be greatly welcomed. I'm thinking about using some of my vacation time to travel elsewhere. A temporary change of location may also help me get my head on straight. Update no. 4. Well, this had been a dreadful day. I've been working really hard to keep my cool. I had plans, things I needed to do. I got up for work, my first day back following the incident. I was looking forward to getting lost in the details. So, of course, on my way to work, I get into a vehicle accident. Without a doubt. All of my progress has vanished. I don't recall the collision itself, but I was assured I wasn't at blame. I have whiplash, a concussion, and my left eye has swollen shut. Add bruises all over, and you've got the picture. I have to spend the night because the doctor wants me to undergo a CT scan and an MRI in the morning. I contacted my parents and told them I was alright because I didn't want them to drive 4 hours for this. I also informed a few workplace buddies about what had occurred, and they agreed to cover for me until I could return. Meanwhile, I'm confined in this bed, staring at my phone. It is impossible for me to unwind. Since I arrived, my left hand has had what appears to be the world's largest 4 in it. At one point, I was counting the milliliters on the pump display down to 0 as I watched the bag drain. I figured if I could just pull that off, I'd have one hand free. I'd feel a little more at ease. I could perhaps sleep. The nurse then made her rounds, replacing the nearly empty bag with a new one. I almost burst out laughing. Then Laura arrived. And it's as though someone twisted my mind. I wanted her to be here more than anything else, yet I also felt sick. I couldn't help but stare at her. She tried hard to say something, but she burst into tears before she could finish. She inquired as to my well-being. I was well prepared for a monosyllabic response. At work, the reptilian, calculating side of myself. She is aware of my vulnerability. Perhaps she's simply taking advantage of the circumstance. Using it to her advantage. Laura then grasped my hand in hers, and I simply vanished. My body hurts, I'm unhappy, and I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted in every sense. We both cried as she squeezed my hand. She just kept saying, "I'm so sorry." It took me a few moments to gather my thoughts. I desperately wanted Laura to stay, but I knew I shouldn't argue with myself in this state. I thanked her for her visit and requested her to depart. Laura was still crying and remained silent for a minute. Then she apologized for coming and told me she loved me before leaving. I'm lying here, feeling helpless. All of the projects I had planned to assist are now moot. I'm trapped in this bed with my thoughts. I can't even take one stride forward and 2 steps back. This is terrible. It's no contact, but all I can think about right now is her fingertips ruffling my hair. I'm not sure how I'm going to pull this off right now. 5th update. I got some sleep yesterday morning, but I was frequently interrupted by nurses, so I didn't get much. After the MRI results, the doctor encouraged me to stay at least another night. On the other hand, I asked them to give me medication to help me sleep, and once I eventually got the 4 out, a co-worker grabbed a few things from my apartment. I had planned to update yesterday night, but I was simply too weary. Games are out of the question because my friend accidentally brought my work laptop. However, I should be out of here by noon. Laura's sister called and asked if I wanted any food sent over, but I knew who would be making it, so I declined. I need to wait 2 to 3 weeks before engaging in any hard physical exercise, so my gym plans have been put on hold. But I'd like to thank you everyone for your help and suggestions over the previous several days. I felt wretched lying in this bed, even more so after reading all the nice things most of you had to say. I appreciate the movie and book recommendations. Despite the restrictions imposed by my doctor, I'll have plenty to do for the time being. This has been the most difficult week of my life. And I don't think I'd have made it as far as I did without you. Thank you so much for all of your love and support. My 6-year-old wife slept with another man behind my back. I met my wife approximately 10 years ago in an online book club. I didn't know much about her other than the novels she was reading at the time. When I found out she was undergoing chemo/radiation for stage 4 metastatic cancer, I messaged a handful of men in the group and asked if they would be willing to give me modest presents so I could put together a care package for her. She was overjoyed, delighted, and grateful when she got the item in the mail. We began privately messaging one another, became friends, and ultimately developed into a long-distance romance. I kept sending her letters and tiny presents, which she would unwrap after each treatment session, until she ultimately went into remission. We were separated by 1,000 kilometers. I flew to see her, and she flew to see me. She ultimately relocated to my state after much back and forth. We purchased a home together in 2015, were engaged the following year, and married in 2016. On the surface, it seemed to be a wonderful union. We only had one fight in our 6 years of marriage. I was earning decent money, which allowed her to secure her ideal job, which she still holds today. We had a good salary and no children. When the stressors of money and children are removed from a marriage, there is nothing left to dispute about. If we had a dispute, we worked it out within hours, or so we thought. I will expand on this later. We sold our home and relocated 1,000 miles to be closer to her family in 2020. In May 2021, she had a hysterectomy due to severe bleeding, required 2 units of blood prior to surgery because her hemoglobin was critically low. I was completely behind her. She took a 12-week leave of absence to heal. I took a 6-week leave of absence from work to care for her. Although the surgeon allowed her to return to work after 6 weeks, I pushed her to take the whole 12 weeks off to heal. She traveled out of state to visit her female friend and co-worker after I returned to work and a week before she was supposed to work. During her stay, she had with a guy with whom she had been having an emotional affair for months. I'm not sure whether I was the first person she had relations with after surgery, or if it was him. He was aware that she was married. It was just by chance that I found the cheating. She was out of town for a conference last weekend. A handful of things happened, which, in hindsight, had nothing to do with the affair, that gave me a nasty feeling in the stomach, and I looked through her computer for the first time in our marriage. I saw the explicit writing and images. I met her at the airport, drove her to our home, stopped in the driveway, and said to her, "Take a look at me. Everything is familiar to me. I'm aware that you've been unfaithful to me. I've seen the pictures and texts. What will happen is as follows. You're going to walk inside and get your necessities. You are welcome to stay with your parents or friends. The next time you hear from me, it will be via my divorce attorney." She didn't say anything negative. As she walked through the house to get her items, I followed her since it seemed like a stranger was entering my home and searching through our possessions. Throughout the whole process, I never raised my voice or raised my hand at her, as I had done for the previous 6 years of our marriage. After she went, I activated the alarm system and rearranged the chairs in front of the front entrance. I was frightened she'd return if I fell asleep. It was as though an invader had broken into my home. During the previous 24 hours, I slept for a total of 50 minutes. My plan after she went was to phone a divorce lawyer the following day. I was unable to take a day off from work. Before I went for work, I texted her to come to the home. The title was in both of our names, so I couldn't legally force her out. I wanted to make sure she didn't do something wild in the home by alone. We planned to meet when I got home from work. We chatted for 2 days straight. Both of us were sobbing a lot. On the surface, our marriage seemed to be a success, but it was plagued by a lack of communication from both of us for 6 years. We both avoided confrontation and preferred to bottle up our emotions. We learned more about each other in 2 days than we had throughout our whole marriage. While she was gone at a conference, I traveled 1.5 hours to assist her 90-year-old grandpa with getting out of bed, providing incontinence care, toileting him, assisting with breakfast, and administering medicine. This was the second time in 2 weeks that it had happened. She emailed me to tell me how much she loved me, and how much she appreciated what I was doing for her grandpa. She says she was planning to call it quits with me once she returned from the conference. To prevent hurting me, break up under the excuse of falling out of love with me and don't discuss the adultery. I honestly don't believe her, and have a strong suspicion that she would have continued to dupe me. Every single problem could have been addressed if every one of us had put just a little more effort. While we had some comparable interests, we couldn't connect on the ones that were most important to each of us. I absolutely blamed her for everything on the first day. The next day, I started hating myself for not being a more attentive spouse than I should have been. After a long day of working from home, all she wanted to do when I came home from work that evening was talk to me. All I needed after being gone for 12 hours was some peace and quiet to recharge. Although she showed a desire to discuss social and personal issues that were important to her, I did not even bother to listen since I could not relate to her position. This is merely a tiny sample of examples. There are several more like them. Furthermore, I do not claim to have been a perfect husband. I don't have no defects. I did, however, make a concerted attempt to make her happy. At the very least, I did all I could to assist. When I found her, she was at her lowest point in life: abusive previous marriage, cancer, assault, anxiety, depression, seizures, and future alcohol abuse. We will be divorcing at the top of her career and personal life, with the exception of the affair. She is in remission from cancer, has been alcohol-free for 1.5 years, hasn't had a seizure in over 3 years, and her anxiety and depression are under control. She also has a fantastic set of friends and family that reside nearby. And I'm now at my lowest moment. I had to uproot my life after the transfer to be with her, and I had no local support. I haven't told my folks yet since I know they'll be angry if they find out. I'm scared that the news will send both of them to the hospital since they were so close to her before she died. As roommates/friends, we currently share a house with 2 other individuals. We have resolved to do everything necessary to make the divorce and transition as easy as possible for both of us, even if it means waiting months or years. She offered to keep the house, take the newer vehicle, and look after both of our dogs, among other things. I can see she's unhappy with herself. Yesterday, we attended a virtual Al-Anon for family meeting, therapy for family members of alcoholics. The concept that family members should not be held accountable for the conduct of alcoholics struck a chord with me. Despite the fact that I am the genuine victim in this circumstance, I have the sensation that I am blaming myself for my wife's adultery. I'm asking for help from others who have been in comparable situations to mine. When someone in whom I had put my whole confidence proves to be a liar, I'll have to relearn how to trust my future husband all over again. On Saturday, I'll be attending my first Infidelity Survivors Anonymous meeting. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to express myself. I'm presenting this information to provide context, not to justify or excuse her cheating. My first serious relationship was with her. I had a few of flings before her, but they didn't turn into anything significant because of an issue I had, ED. And, although we had a life in LDR, once we began living together, the issue reappeared. We spent months without having at one point early in the relationship. She urged me to go to the doctor, but I put it off. It's all my fault. I was younger, less mature, and, to be honest, eventually, at the age of 29, I'm now 33, I was tested and discovered that I had extremely low testosterone levels. And I'm not sure how long I've been living this way. I'm guessing a decade, since I've always felt that I had less energy than my contemporaries. At the time, I got T's replacement and felt like a new man. We began having again, but it was never as amazing as it had been in LDR, and it never lived up to the dream we had prior to living together. There were still occasions when I couldn't keep going, but they were much less frequent than previously. She did comment yesterday that although there was less often, she enjoyed it when we did have it. What I lacked in one area, I made up for in another. I gave her an oral, which she enjoyed. Likewise, vice versa. Recently, I began to notice that my T levels had dropped again. Now that I'm more mature, I went to be tested and will have a follow-up appointment next week to receive the findings. Again, this is not to belittle her betrayal. But if I'm going to talk about her flaws, it's only fair that I mention my own to round out the picture.